Welcome to another edition of Behind the Bars TV. In this episode, I'm going to be talking about all things prison related, but in this episode, I'm going to be talking about HMP Parc, which is in Bridgend, Wales. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because it's popped up in the prison news, and the headline is 6 inmates die in Welsh prison in just over 3 weeks. So the last 22 days I've seen 6 prisoner deaths at HMP Parc, which are all being independently investigated. Obviously it's not given the reasons for it yet because it's so early on. I'll be doing post-mortems. But when I've seen articles like this previously, the first thing that springs to mind is substance abuse. And the one that it normally is down to is spice. Because spice is so strong, it can actually cause sudden deaths. I've seen people taking spice in prison before, and it gets called the zombie drug because it turns them into what looks like a living zombie. They curl up on the floor, they're making all sorts of grunting and groaning noises. They've got no control over what they're doing, and it actually makes them quite vulnerable to attack from the other prisoners. And they actually sometimes become the focus point of the other prisoners, having a laugh, taking the mickey out of them, doing whatever. And that's the effects of spice. You've got no control over your actions and what's happening. And as I've just mentioned, you become vulnerable to attack or humiliation from the other inmates. But it says here an investigation has been launched into a series of deaths at the massive Park prison in Bridgend. 6 inmates are understood to have died since the end of February at the privately run prison, which houses more than 1,700 inmates. Now that is a staggering amount of inmates, and HMP Parc, when I've just been having a look up on it, is actually a Category B adult male prison and young offender institution. And as I've just stated, it's operated by G4S, and anyone that knows anything about the prisons, whether you've worked in prisons or you've been to prison, will know that the privately run prisons are ram-packed with drugs, more often than not brought in by the staff or chucked over the wall, because the security in the privately run prisons isn't as tight as what there would be in the government-run prisons. But HMP Parc has a capacity for around about just over 1,500, nearly 1,600 inmates. But this one has over 1,700 inmates in the prison, which is obviously overcrowded. And overcrowding privately run prisons are a powder keg of disaster, as in the violence and the drugs are rife. From a prisoner's point of view, a prisoner that wants to be involved in these sort of activities, these sort of prisons are the ideal places for them. But prisoners that don't want to be involved in this sort of stuff, they just want to get in, get the time done, these places can be absolute hellholes. So it goes on to say the prison's watchdog has launched a probe into the deaths at HMP Parc, which is run by a private security firm, G4S, and is one of the largest prisons in the UK. 2 deaths were reported at the prison on the February the 27th, and it goes on to name the prisoners. The prisoners who died were Jason Hussey and John Rose. And it says they understand that there has been 4 more inmate deaths since. The private security firm that runs the prison said, "Our thoughts are with the families and friends of the prisoners who have died recently at Parc." Now again, it hasn't said why the prisoners have died. It could have been different circumstances, but from my experiences with prisons, it's normally down to substance abuse, narcotics. A lot of the time, it's down to what type of benzodiazepines, like maybe Valium, Xanax, different type of substances like this that prisoners aren't used to, and sometimes they get a boatload of them in the prisons, and the prisoners take the same amount that they've took previously when they've been fined, but because they hadn't had any drugs for a long period of time, they're thinking they can still take the same amount of drugs. And when they're taking likes of Xanax or Valium with pregabs as well, pregabalin, they're mixing them drugs together and they're having an adverse effect, and the prisoners aren't waking up. The prisoners are lying dead, and they're being found the next day by the prison officers when they're opening up the cells for roll call or for work or whatever in the morning. But it goes on to say, after sources close to Parc told Wales Online there had been a series of deaths at the prison, G4S refused to give provisional causes of death or any further details. The Ombudsman is investigating all 6 deaths. In 2022 inspection, some 49% of surveyed Parc prisoners said it was easy to get a hold of illegal drugs there, compared with 32% in similar prisons, just like I've just mentioned. The HM Chief Inspector of Prisons also wrote that self-harm levels were high among Parc prisoners and that there had been 5 near-fatal incidents in the first 6 months of 2022. A study in June 2023 found that Parc had 1,734 prisoners, significantly over its certified normal accommodation capacity of 1,559. A South Wales Central Coroner's Service spokesman said, as with all deaths in custody, an inquest is required and will be opened in the usual manner in open court in accordance with the Coroners and Justice Act 2009. The name and date of birth of the deceased and circumstances of the death will be read into the public record during the opening of the inquest. But obviously, with it still being the early stages, it'll be ongoing and they can't release the names of the other 4 individuals just yet. But again, this popped up and I thought I would bring it to the attention of the viewers, because mainstream media doesn't publish things like this. And this is only on one article that I could find online, which is Wales Online. And there's not many people will be reading these sort of articles. So I'm bringing it to the attention of the viewers, just so you know what is actually going on inside the prisons. Because at the moment, the prison system is an absolute mess. It's a shambles. It's a shambles for the staff that's working there. It's a shambles for the prisoners. It's a shambles for everybody involved, because the overcrowding is immense at the minute. As you might have seen last week, they're releasing some prisoners 60 days early. And the reason behind that is because the overcrowding is so drastic at the moment. People with short sentences that have only got 60 days left are getting released early to try and ease the overcrowding. But like I've also mentioned previously, the IPPs, there's about 3,000 IPP prisoners still in prison on an abolished sentence. The majority of them, or half of them, are back in on a recall for no further offences. So release the IPPs and it will release the overcrowding. But again, the ones that they're releasing early are the ones that are in and out all the time. Shoplifters, people like that, what you would class as low-level offences that are in and out of prison all the time. These are the ones that are going to be getting released early on the 60-day scheme. But HMP Parc is a massively overcrowded prison with over 1,700 inmates, privately run, where drugs and violence is rife, and it's just a part of everyday life. But another prison that's in Wales as well, which is HMP Berwyn, that is classed as a super prison, not as in Supermax, but in super because of the capacity. The capacity of HMP Berwyn is 2,106. But I just thought I would mention that briefly at the end of this video, because I am going to be doing a separate video on HMP Berwyn, talking about what type of prison it is and what it's actually like inside a super prison, not super max, but super capacity. But I'll leave that one there for now, people. Keep a lookout for that other video. I'll be doing it soon. Hopefully you're enjoying the content. As usual, if you are liking it, remember, hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Take care, everyone.